What's up everybody, it's Victon here with my final update of the league for the Skeleton Mage Necromancer. At this point I feel very confident that the build is at its peak performance with a great balance between high DPS and survivability. I've made several gearing changes from my last build guide with upgrades to gems and my gear, which has brought me up to a total of 32 million base DPS with just the skeletons, and 53 million DPS when you have your Vol summon skeletons out, which is about 80 to 90% of the time. Add in a properly set up Animate Guardian, and we're up to 45 base million DPS and 71 million DPS with your Vol summon skeletons out. As you can see from the gameplay showcase behind, we're doing wave 30 double bosses pretty quickly at this point, and overall I'm doing waves 1 to 30 on the Simulacrum a lot faster than I was with my last guide. I've also been running tier 17 promenades with Delirium mirrors in Volder's Rest, which if you don't know, the monsters towards the end of that map are even harder than they are on 100% Delirium, and that's on a Mega Juice tier 17 map. I'm getting on average 200 splinters from those maps, which is actually pretty crazy considering it's not a build designed for that content. Usually run Headhunter builds with Lightning Arrow, Lightning Strike, Kinetic Blast for that type of map, but we're able to keep up the damage enough to compete and profit quite heavily from them. Defensive wise, I'm now up to 75 attack block and 75 spell block without Rumi's concoction, which is absolutely fantastic. It really helps getting as high as possible because relying on Rumi's means sometimes when the flask is down, you won't be block capped, but we are, which is amazing. That mixed with 5% of life recovered on block, 45k armor, 75% chaos res, we actually have a super high effective HP too, which is quite great for mapping and of course for those really scary bosses. At this point, I've spent about 250 to 300 exalts on this build, and it's probably tied with the best minion build I have ever played. I'd say it's way better than the old Syndicate Operatives Mega DPS builds, because while it has less DPS than those builds, it has more than enough damage for all the content in the game, but on top of that, it has fantastic defenses, which that Syndicate Operative build always lacked. I'd say the only minion build that has ever come close to this build is the old Heist days when we could run low life or stacking Carrion Golem Necromancer. That build had insane damage and defenses. We're actually pretty close to the level of damage and survivability we used to have, and I have been incredibly impressed with all the progression levels of this build, all the way from league start under a couple exalts, up to a medium budget at around 40 exalts, up to a high budget around 100 exalts, and to where I'm at where I would consider being the min-max version at around 250 exalts plus. All that being said, I can comfortably argue that this build is currently, in my opinion, the best overall minion build out there right now, period. And I am sticking by that statement. So at this point, I feel like my build is pretty much complete, and I will be making this the last guide that I do for Skeleton Mages this league. But in this guide, we are going to go over everything you need to know about the build for the min-max. We're going to go over the updated skill tree, the new gem links that I have, and lastly, of course, we're going to talk about the gear that I have either purchased or crafted. If you're interested in the base build, I'll have a link to all of the versions of my build guides below from, like I said, that starting budget version all the way up to the high budget version, and then now, of course, this min-max version. And lastly, before we dive into the path of building, I wanted to mention that if you're interested in supporting the channel, I also have a Patreon link below, which is going to get you access to my Discord community, where we have a ton of people chatting about builds all day, every day, and I actually do personal build reviews in there all the time as well. Alright, so enough of all that, let's hop right into the guide, and feel free to check timestamps below if you want to skip around certain parts of the guide. Alright, here we are in the path of building. So the path of building you guys are already pretty familiar with. Not too much has changed here, but there's definitely some changes that I want to talk about that are actually pretty important. So we'll go over that, like I said, and then we'll go over the skills and the items after that. But first and foremost, you'll probably notice this big old white circle over here. What the heck is that? So this is actually how we're getting a significant amount of DPS. Let's unclick this. 33. Woo. We go from 24 million up to 33 million. That's crazy damages. Crazy damages. So what is this? So it is an elegant Hubris, which is a timeless jewel. These are super cheap. They're anywhere, you can buy them as cheap as like 4 chaos up to, usually you buy them, especially if you're buying them in bulk, around like 8 chaos. Which is actually around the price of a Divine Orb, which is what I did. I purchased Divine Orbs in bulk, which was much easier than purchasing these elegant Hubrises, and I was just going Divine crazy. And I finally hit this guy, which I like quite a bit. So just so you guys know kind of what an elegant Hubris does, right? So if you Divine it, it's going to give you a ton of different options for all of your notables. So like these guys right here, it's got a ton of different options. Like look at all these. You could roll, minions have 80% increased life, 50% lightning res, 80% increased cold damage with attack skills. It's a ton of different randomness. The one that we want and we're looking for is called Slumlord. Slumlord is 80% increased minion damage. That is crazy. And on top of that, not only is that just crazy, but you can get multiple within the same wheel. I have 3 on mine, so 80 and another 80 and another 80 right here. And on top of that, I have a super crazy one because I also got 8% chance to block spell damage, and I got 8% chance to block attack damage as well. Actually bonkers. So super cool on that. That's probably not going to happen to you guys. So if that doesn't happen to you guys, I would probably just use the roomies, which we'll talk about here in a second. But getting this was actually able to put me at 75 without needing roomies. For all of you guys, I would probably have to suggest that you do need roomies unless you're able to get it in some other way. But that's how I did it, and that increased my DPS significantly doing that. And also getting the attack block chance and the spell block chance right there, which was both 8%. Now, I did need to get a little bit extra block as well since I was dropping that roomies. So I actually dropped one of my medium clusters here, and I actually picked up a small cluster, which was this right here, which is increased armor, which is pretty nice. But we're also getting that little passive there called Second Skin, which is 3% chance to block spell and attack damage and 30% increased armor. That actually gave me a ton of armor. Let's uncheck that. We get 6,000 armor from these 2 points, which is pretty nice. And we're going to be capping that block chance. We're actually over capping by just a little bit with that block chance. So like I said, if you don't have these 2 nodes right here, getting this is pretty good to help you out. That +3 and +3 is pretty solid. And I know that you can also get, I think that you can get also this one, because this one's an armor one. I'm pretty sure you can get it on a block chance one as well. But I got mine on the armor one just because that's what it was. And I think I purchased this for, I don't know, like 20 chaos. These are super cheap. Cool. So that's the big change on the tree. Let's see. I really don't think there's any other changes on the tree. One of the things that I did do eventually was drop Bone Barrier. I don't think that's necessary. I actually dropped that so I could get Commander of Darkness, and I really just did that for the 30% all elemental resistances, which really helped me with my gear, because I switched my gear around mainly to get a better shield, and that shield that I got, I'll show y'all in a second, which is crucial for also me getting my DPS up as high as I did. But in order to do that, I needed to kind of move my gear around a little bit, which I lost some chaos res from my shield, which I had to put it on other pieces. So that was just really helpful, getting that 30 to all elemental resistances, and it was well worth dropping the Bone Barrier. Not a big deal. The only thing that I would say, which is probably the biggest loss from Bone Barrier, is you're not going to be immune to bleed. So that's one thing that was really nice with Bone Barrier, is once you have Bone Barrier active, you're immune to bleed. So what I actually did to prevent the bleed, really big issues, because that's a pretty big issue in simulacrums. Those guys, the bosses, bleed quite a bit. So I went with this one right here, the Soul of Relikash. While moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage, and Corrupting Blood cannot be inflicted on you with 5 Corrupting Blood debuffs on you. So that helped me with the bleeding, and bleeding is not a problem anymore. We still have Soul of the Brine King for cannot be frozen, which is pretty nice. And of course you cannot be stunned if you've already been stunned. So no changes there, but I did want to mention that because I did change that. I think everything else on the tree is the same, actually. The only changes, I guess, that we could mention while we're in here talking about the tree is some of these jewels. I did pick up 2% increased reservation efficiency on these. I think I got them on, what, a couple? Let's see, I got them on that one. The other ones are probably up here. So that one just has minion damage. So I got one there, so that's 2. I think that's probably it. Yep, I think that was probably it. So I got 2 with mana reservation efficiency, which did help in order to be able to cast my skeletons. They actually cost right around 100 mana, and you do need at least 2 of these in order to cast your skeletons. And getting a lot of increased reservation efficiency is pretty important, which you'll see here in a second. And I guess I can kind of just spoil it. So basically, one of the big things that we did to improve our DPS was we got enough reservation efficiency on both the tree and also on our shield that we're now able to run all the same orders that we did last time, but we're also adding on top of that aspect of the spider or some extra damage, which is very nice. Cool. So that's the tree. No big changes on there except this, which was pretty crazy. I guess I should mention this. One thing about these jewels is it actually deactivates all these small nodes right here. So we're actually losing a bunch of strength and a bunch of intellect. And now when I did that, I actually dropped below my intellect that you need for the convoking wand, which is why I actually had to pick up retribution, which is plus 10 to strength and intelligence. So as you can see, there you go. I'm now, if I don't have that exact node, I'm like, don't have enough strength and I don't have enough intellect. And that's because of this jewel right here. So just keep that in mind. If you are using an elegant hubris, it's gonna remove all your int and your strength in the circle, and you could do like this to pick it up. Cool. Moving on to our skills. Now, one thing that I would say about skills is I have tested a bunch of stuff this league, and I think this is the optimal gem link setup for any version of the build, whether it be budget version, you know, under 1 exalt, all the way up to this 250 exalt build. I think this is the build, I think this is the gem links that you guys should be using. So even if you don't have 200 plus exalts, maybe you can make some changes to your build just based off of gems. So our main skill obviously is Vol Summon Skeletons, and we have Vol Summon Skeletons. The 2120 is pretty expensive. I think it was like 10 plus exalts last time I checked. You can always, of course, just get a 21-0, but getting that 2120 is just a little bit more DPS. It's about 1 million DPS. We of course have Pierce. Volley is what we're going to be using when you're mapping. And what I have actually done is change this up a little bit. We dropped the, what is it called? Elemental Focus, and we put in increased critical damage instead. Now doing that is going to allow us to now, configure, we now chill and we shock as well. So now we chill and we shock. Ignite really doesn't make a difference, but Elemental Focus made it to where they did pretty solid damage, but you're not able to chill and you're not able to shock. But now we've dropped that, we're going with crit damage, which is a ton of damage. They actually have 40% crit chance, so that's actually quite a lot of crit chance as well. So pretty nice there with the crit damage. And that also allows us to not have to use, we were using slower projectiles before, but we can now drop that and we can use hypothermia, which is a mega DPS increase. And I chose anomalous. For support skills have 20% chance to freeze enemies which are chilled, which just helps in, you know, the really tough content. It's not a huge deal. You can get default, it's probably fine, or anomalous, really whatever you want. The Divergent does not help though, just do know that, because enemies frozen by sword skills have 4% cold resist. That's not going to help us at all, so don't buy Divergent. But this setup is definitely the way that you want to go, even on the lower budget versions. And again, you swap out Volley for hypothermia only on like really tough bosses, like not really map bosses or anything like that. I would really only, you know, do like actual in-game bosses is when you would want to switch that from Volley to hypothermia. And I definitely do that in my simulacrum. Starting at around wave 25, if I get any of the bosses, I will switch out, like run into a corner, and I'll take out my Volley and I'll put in hypothermia. So that's kind of how I do that. And as you can see, of course, that 33 million DPS is only with our skeletons checked. And if we check the Vol Summon Skeletons, that's where it goes up to that 52 million juicy DPS. Cool, moving on. Sniper's Mark in our ring. So we do still have one unset ring. I think we only have one at this point. Yeah, we only have one unset ring. We do have Sniper's Mark in there. Desecrate, Bone Offering, and Life Tap is in our weapon, which does have trigger socketed spell when you use a skill. I like this setup quite a bit. Basically, the Desecrate and Bone Offering being on Life Tap means that you're never going to have to deal with the mana, because it does cost mana, and it's pretty annoying if you don't use Life Tap on there, just because we don't have that much mana in the first place. So I would absolutely suggest you do Life Tap in there, and then it just solves that problem completely. And it's also make sure that your Bone Offering is up 24/7. It'll never go away if you do that Life Tap, which is pretty good. Very good. And pro tip on this, obviously you want to have this, you need this in a very specific order here. You need green, red, and blue, because you need to cast Desecrate first and then Bone Offering. I guess you could do green, blue, red, doesn't really matter, but you need green first, basically. Green first, and my tip on that is just do the bench crafting trick. So you would throw it in the bench craft, your wand, and you do 2 sockets as the craft. So you do the 2 socket craft, and then you would do 1 green, 1 red as the craft, and then you would get green, red. That's what you would get. no matter what, it's 100% chance. And then you would just do 3 socket after that, and you're probably going to get blue. If you don't, then just go back to 2, then go to 3, and you'll probably get blue there. It's pretty cheap to do that, and that'll guarantee you green, red, blue. Very good. Moving on to our gloves here. We have Flame Dash, Awaken Generosity, Vol Haste, and Zealotry. And that is with Vol Haste enabled for only bosses. Let's go ahead and uncheck that. And that's more like the real DPS. You know what, let's just say that, and I'll correct that in the title as well. I want to go with that. I don't want to go with the enable Vol Haste in there, so I'll fix that for you guys. It's 27 mil, which of course is still fantastic DPS, right? But it is good to note that we are now able to have Vol Haste in the build, which is pretty solid, especially for the Simulacrum farming. I'm able to get a full Vol Haste off, and usually we can kill even wave 30 boss within 1 to 1.5 Vol Hastes. Usually it's like 1 Vol Haste, and then it's probably gonna die, and if it doesn't, then it'll die in the next 4 seconds or something like that. So pretty nice to actually get that Vol Haste in there. But yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna include that on there, and I'll change the DPS numbers that I mentioned earlier. Apologies. Don't roast me, team. Don't roast me. We have Zealotry, of course, which is then linked also to Awaken Generosity and Vol Haste. And that means that our minions are going to get the full effect of Zealotry and Haste, not us, which we don't really need it, not a big deal. Flame Dash, of course, for our movement ability. We have in our helmet, we have Ray Zombie, Animate Guardian, Ray Spectre, and Meat Shield. I rolled this helmet myself here, and what I was going for was either minion life or +3 to socket of minion gems, some life, and a resist. And I hit +3, and I was totally fine with that. It's actually totally fine to go with either the +3 or any of the life rolls. The life rolls is actually probably better. Like if you're able to get, socketed gems or support over at level 20 minion life, that's actually probably better than the +3. So keep that in mind. The 86 life is nice, of course, the 1 resistance. Try and do that. Try and hit one of those 2, the +3, or the minion life, and then a life roll and a resistance roll. It's really, really helpful. And then I just multi-bonded on there, of course, the +1 to maximum number of skeletons, and I was able to get some cold and chaos reses there as well. Very nice, and it really didn't even cost me that much to roll this. I think I did it in like, I don't know, under 15 bound fossils. The helmet itself is more expensive. I think I paid 6 exalts, something like that, for the minion damage bone helmet with the skeletons increased damage. You can also get the, I would probably say that's the best one. I would say skeletons is probably the best one. Skeleton damage, yeah. Well, moving on to our boots. This is where we're gonna have our Summoned Stone Golem, Feeding Frenzy, and Molten Shell. So surprisingly, even in the content that I have been doing, our Stone Golem has only died 1 time, and I've probably run like 30 plus tier 17 promenades, a ton of Simulacrum waves 30s, and it's died 1 time. I was actually really surprised by that. But yeah, so Summoned Stone Golem and Feeding Frenzy. And then our utility skills here, we have Molten Shell, which is going to be on our left click, which is going to give us a nice armor buff, which is going to be up quite a bit. And also we have, this is interesting, so I went with this Enduring Cry. Now the reason I'm going with Enduring Cry is because we do not have a life flask. So not having a life flask is a little scary, right? So going with Enduring Cry, basically, if you hit that, it's going to regenerate, almost 2,000 life over 1 second. That's a pretty solid, I mean, that's basically what? Half of a Divine Flask, something like that. A little bit more than half of a Divine Flask. That's not bad. That's not bad. And it's going to get you your endurance charges if you don't have max endurance charges. I have 2 minimum endurance charges because of both my rings. But if you don't have those on your rings, the Enduring Cry is going to cover you right there. So pretty nice. Moving on to our weapon 2, we actually have, okay, so this is important. So I do want to talk about the actual shield because it is quite important. So the most important thing here is the socketed gems have 30% increased reservation efficiency. That is what, along with the nodes that we have on the tree, and then those 2 within our jewels, the corrupted implicits, that is going to get us the ability to run all of our auras plus Aspect of the Spider. Okay, very important. Obviously, the second most important there is the recover life when you block. Not necessarily the life gained when you block. That was just super nice that I actually got that on there as well. The most important one there is recover life when you block. And then of course, if you can get some life on there, that's fantastic. Try and get a tower shield just because it comes with that extra life, and it also comes with a decent chunk of armor as well. Cool. So that is the shield. Very, very important. This was one of the big upgrades, not in price. This was one of the big upgrades that I made for the build that allowed me, like I said, to get that extra boost in DPS. But I did have to move some stuff around, which I'll talk about here shortly. I think this shield cost me 10 exalts, which is not too bad for the amount of DPS that I was able to gain from it. Going back to our seals here, within that shield, you want Defiance Banner, Tempest Shield, and Determination. Defiance Banner is actually fantastic. It's going to give us a whole bunch of extra armor. I quite like it, and it's a really cheap aura too. It takes us from 36k armor up to 45k armor. That's actually crazy. So super solid for the Defiance Banner. Tempest Shield, which is going to get us that block chance, and then Determination, of course, for the armor. And then we have the Aspect of the Spider, which is in our Ring 2, which we will talk about here, might as well. So you can, of course, craft Aspect of the Spider on rings. You can craft on everything, I think. Yeah, you can craft on everything. You just need to open suffix, right? So you need to open suffix, and then you're gonna buy, I think the beast is called First of the Night, Venomous First of the Night, possibly. So check that on I think they're like, 10 chaos as well. They're super cheap. But take that to your menagerie, you throw in whatever item you do, kill the little spider dude, and there you go. You got Aspect of the Spider skill. Venomous First of the Night is what the beast is called. Yeah, so as you can remember, I guess I'll mention this. Remember, I had a whole bunch of chaos res on my shield. Like I said, you're probably not going to get a bunch of extra stats on your shields besides the Socket of Gems have reservation and that recover life. Once you start getting some life and some resistance, it's going to get pretty expensive. So that's why you're probably gonna have to switch some of your other gear. Like for example, my belt. I now have a mega big belt for resistances and life. I think this also cost me around 10 exalts. And the reason I dropped the Darkness Enthroned was because of that, just because I lost resistances elsewhere, and this was able to help me pretty much cap my elemental resistances, which freed me up to get a big ring here, which it had a ton of chaos res on it, 42 chaos res and a bunch of dexterity, which again, we are short on dexterity. I have literally exactly the amount of dexterity, 159 for the build. So that was a little tough to get, but I got that, which was pretty nice. And then on that second one, I just got, so this is also important. What I would do is I purchased a ring, an amethyst ring, with fractured life on it, a tier 1 fractured life. I think I bought this for 1 exalt. It was either 1 or 2 exalt, and then I crafted this myself. I literally alteration spammed with augments, which was really annoying, but I did it until I hit a tier 1 or tier 2 chaos resistance roll, and then I regaled it, and then I put the Aspect of the Spider, and then I crafted the minimum endurance charge. That's a super easy way to craft this. Obviously, if you don't get one with the fractured life, it's going to be way more difficult to do. You could get fractured chaos res, a tier 1 fractured chaos res, but those are a lot more expensive. So I guess just whatever's on the market, either get a tier 1 life roll or a tier 1 chaos resistance roll fractured, and then just use alterations and augment orbs to roll the other one. Cool. And the belt, like I said, this was about 10 exalts for this one. And then I don't think any of my abyssal jewels actually changed. All of my abyssal jewels are the exact same as the other builds. Basically, what you're focusing on here is the 20% increased damage if you use a minion skill recently, and then the increased cast speed if you or your minions have killed recently. And if you can, on top of that, you can either get life, or you can get minions deal additional lightning, cold, fire damage. So these are pretty good jewels I have. I've got, let's see, I've got this one, which is kind of the same thing, and then I've got one more, which again is kind of the same thing here. I don't have life on any of mine, so that would be probably a pretty nice little boost there if I was able to get life. But even with 4,500 life, I'm super comfortable. Yeah, 4,500 life, I'm super comfortable. I literally never die. The only time I die is in those tier 17 promenade maps, literally towards the very end of the map if I have like a coast or something. That's a little scary. But other than that, I'm totally fine. Like I can do wave 30 simulacrums completely deathless at this point and do them fast. Very solid. Cool. So let's talk about let's do our Watcher's Eye. So this is, you have several options you can do for your Watcher's Eye. I think it's probably the most important one is just getting that chance to block attack or spell. No, yeah, you want a chance to block attack damage while affected by determination. That put me above my block chance cap. Without using roomies. So if you are using roomies, It's not necessarily, you probably don't need it, but if you are trying to not use roomies, I would suggest getting the chance to block attack damage while affected by determination. One of the other good ones, of course, is actually what I have here, which is the increased armor while affected by determination. As you can see, I paid 12 exalts for this one. The other good one that you could get, which is actually more expensive, is the physical damage reduction while affected by determination. I think there was only a couple on the market, like the chance to block attack damage, plus the physical damage reduction. They were sort of like 20 plus exalts, which I didn't think that I necessarily needed. So that's why I went with this one instead. But again, the most important is the chance to block attack damage while affected by determination, and those are cheap. You can get those for like a couple exalts, and then just divine it yourself up to 8%. Cool. I think that probably covers my jewels here. Like I already said, we do want 2 of your jewels to have increased reservation efficiency at least. You could get, I actually have, I think I had 3, and then I just dropped one of them to get minions deal increased damage, which again, it's absolutely whatever. But at least 2. You need at least 2 with the reservation efficiency, and they're actually cheaper than you would think. They're only a couple exalts, so they might go up after this, I guess, maybe a few exalts, but they're not too bad. They're not too bad to purchase those. For our flasks, like I said, we've changed our flasks up a little bit because I do not have Rumi's Concoction now. I still have my Enduring Mana Flask. It would probably be better to have an Enduring Mana Flask of Staunching with the bleed immunity on there. That would probably be the best, but I don't have that because I'm lazy. But definitely either way, you want an Eternal Mana Flask, Enduring Eternal Mana Flask, because it really helps with summoning your skeletons. We have a Taste of Hate with the enchant used when charges are full. The most important role here is that 15% physical damage from hits taken as cold damage, which is just super solid for defenses. We have a Bottomless Basalt Flask of the Armadillo. So on the Basalt Flask, you want increased armor during Flask effect, or you could, I guess, switch it for this one with the let's just have a Granite Flask here, which is a reduced curse effect. So you want curse effect on one of them and increase armor on the other one. So Basalt and a Granite is what we have there. And then we have, for our last flask, dropping Rumies is going to get you the ability to now use a Bottled Faith, which is pretty nice. That's a whole lot of extra damage. I think it gives us maybe like 3 or 4 million, maybe about 3 million DPS. So again, it's nothing crazy, but once you start adding in like all these extra stuff like your Animate Guardian, that's where it starts at, like 5-6 million DPS is when you get the Bottled Faith. So pretty nice once you're at that min-max point. If you're not at that min-max point, it's not worth getting a Bottled Faith. I would probably just use like a Quicksilver Flask or something, which is what I actually do use sometimes. Like for mapping, I do Quicksilver Flask. I don't bother with the Bottled Faith, not worth. Cool. I think that is it. Oh, the boots. So these cost me 10 exalts as well. I guess that's weird. A lot of the stuff cost me 10 exalts. So this cost me 10 exalts, and it was +1 to maximum number of Skeletors, which is fantastic. Yo, guys, if you want to make some profit, go start crangling a bunch of Alberon's Worth Paths. They're expensive. Literally just pop it in there until you get +1 to maximum number of skeletons and sell it for some monies. So pretty nice, but a +2 to number of skeletons is crazy. It's crazy. So that actually brings us up to 14 skeletons, which is pretty good, which again is why our DPS shot up even more. Very good. Obviously try and get one with a not a bad Kringle on there. Like I had, -29 fire res. The best ones are, I think they have like, reduced totem duration or something like that is obviously fantastic because that doesn't even bother us. But there's a lot of them that are really bad, like, minus chaos res. Don't get anything like that. That's hard. Getting minus fire res is not as big of a deal. But yeah, Alberon's Worth Path with +2 to summon skeletons is a fantastic DPS upgrade. We did go with gloves, which are the Breath Stealer, and this is also incredibly important. So these gloves are crazy for the scary content, especially simulacrums. Dude, you guys are going to have 6 gajillion little spore pods on the ground when you're in those higher waves, just because you're killing so many rares. You have a ton of these little spore pods, and some of the best spore pods that you can get obviously are like Haste, and you can actually get an energy shield spore pod, which gives you like 3,000 energy shield, which is fantastic. Basically it's like little mini headhunters, but except it's just like one little buff per spore pod, but it's everywhere that you kill, and it lasts almost forever. So super solid. Mine have obviously the 6% increased maximum life because I'm in maxing, but you do want charisma on there. That's why it's very important to get Breath Stealers, because we do need charisma. Again, we need as much mana reservation efficiency as possible. So we did go with charisma there, and our amulet, we have death attunement because we're just saving points. We don't want to spend 1, 2, 3, 4. We don't want to spend those 5 points to get up to death attunement. So that saves us 5 points. So also pretty solid there. Cool. And I think I had the same flesh crafter that I did before. The best enchant for flesh crafters, obviously, implicit, is the +2 level socket of duration gems. And the second best is +1 to level of active gems. I think that is probably all of my items that I have changed or purchased. Nope. The wand. Last is the wand. This one was a little expensive. I did purchase this one. I did not craft it. I'm pretty sure I can explain the crafting process. But this is what you're looking for. Okay, so you obviously want the +1 to level spell skills. You want the +1 to level of minion skill gems. You obviously want, minion damage and also minion cast speed if you can get it. The really important one here, which is boosting our damage even more, is zealotry has increased aura effect. That's actually the tier 2 roll that I have right now. The tier 1 rolls, those are like 60 exalts plus. I paid 30 exalts, I think, for mine, and this was, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, something like that. And I'm pretty sure they've shot up in price quite a bit. So if you guys want to make some currency as well, go craft some of these wands. But yeah, and then I also just crafted on there. Spells triggered by this have, you can trigger target spells when you use a skill. Very good. So now how you craft this, it's basically the exact same process actually of crafting the normal wand. You're just getting lucky. You just need to make sure before you start your process that you slam a Crusader's Orb on it. And what I would actually do is, here's what I would do. I would actually get the +1 to level of spell skill gems first, like craft your wand normally, okay? And then once you have an open, oh no, zealotry, is zealotry a prefix or suffix? Let's see if we can figure that out. Prefix, I'm gonna go with it's a suffix, is what my guess is. I think it's a suffix. So do your normal craft when you craft this wand, get the +1 to level spell, +1 to level of minion, whatever else that you can get on. If you can get minion damage, great. If you can get cast speed, great. Definitely craft on there the trigger socketed spells. So that has a suffix right there. Actually, you know what you should do? If you have an open prefix, you should probably craft a prefix on there, like literally whatever, just so you can block it from rolling prefixes. So you definitely, okay, yeah, so definitely fill up prefixes because you do not want to do prefix when you exalt slam a Crusader Orb onto it. So get your full wand done and then exalt slam with the Crusader exalt and pray to RNGesus that you hit zealotry. If it doesn't work, then you can just keep crafting it, or you can just sell it right there and try again. I think you have I can't remember exactly what the percentage is. It's like a 1 in 6 or something to hit it, which isn't too bad, honestly. So not too bad. And like I said, mine's a tier 2 roll and it's fantastic. This wand over my last wand added about 4 million DPS. So quite a bit. And like I said, I paid somewhere between 30 and 35 exalts for this one, but that was 2 weeks ago when it was a little bit cheaper. Okay, cool. I think that's it. Let me just go through all these because I missed those. Pretty sure that is it though. Yep, that is it. So yeah, just going over, I think we could, why don't we do this? Why don't we go over the configuration so you guys can kind of see that, so that there's no shenanigans going on. And I will show you also, by the way, a tip on how to get your Animate Guardian in your POB. Okay, so first off, I put enemy hit damage is at 10,000, which is like the hit. This is what I've been told. This is the hit of like a Cyrus hit. And as you can tell from our effective HP pool, we're at 240k for our physical, we're at 280k for lightning, 360 for cold, 280 for fire, and 280 for chaos. So actually we have a really good effective HP. So I'm pretty happy with those numbers for our effective HP. Moving on to the damages of the calculations here, we do have endurance charges, of course. Do your minions have power and frenzy? So our specters are this. We want 1 host chieftain, 1 Carnage Chieftain, both of those come from Act 7 the Ashen Fields, and then we want 1 Pale Seraphim, and we want 1 Arena Master. Those are your 4 Spectres that you want to get. If you do not have Pale Seraphim or Arena Master, type /global space 6666. That is the Spectre channel. You can go there and you can ask for those Spectres, and I guarantee somebody will be able to invite you, and you can go to their hideout and you can desecrate and you can get those Spectres. So that is our Spectre setup. If you only have 3 Spectres, I would drop the Pale Seraphim, and I would use Arena Master, Host Chieftain, and Carnage Chieftain. Cool. So moving down here, the fortification stacks is coming from our Animate Guardian, which actually doesn't really change anything, so that doesn't matter. The Are You on Consecrated Ground, that is for Bottled Faith, which again doesn't change the DPS. That's for me and my life regen per second. Have your minions killed recently? That's going to be up all the time. Minions died recently? That's going to be up all the time because you're resummoning skeletons constantly. If you used a minion skill recently, obviously you're using it all the time because you're casting skeletons. Number of spiderweb stacks, 3. That is coming from the aspect of the spider, which gives us a ton of damage. So we're going from 25 to 23. So that's giving us a little over 2.5 million DPS. So a pretty nice little upgrade there from the spiders. Is Feeding Frenzy active? Of course it is. That's from our Stone Golem. And then we have Ignite, Chilled, and Shocked, which is all coming from the fact that our skeletons do cold, lightning, and fire damage, of course, and that we have dropped Elemental Focus in place of crit damage now. So that's where those are coming from. As they mean on Consecrated Ground, that is from the Bottled Faith, which is... nope, wrong one. Where are you, Bottled Faith? There we go. So a little bit more damage, 27 mil. Going back to our right here. So yeah, that is from that. So now the reason this says no for is the enemy a boss is because with Fleshcrafter, it treats enemies basically as if they have no resistances. It can't go below the resistances, but it's at 0. So it basically treats it as if it's a normal monster. So that's where that comes from. And actually, I want to mention something now that I just mentioned the Fleshcrafter. A lot of people have been commenting on this saying like, hey, yo, my Animate Guardian just died, right? Or my skeletons are dying every time I'm summoning them. That is because you have too much chaos resistance. You cannot have above 50 chaos resistance for your minions on this build. I'm pretty sure they have a base of 20, so do not give them anything more than 29 additional chaos resistance in any way. Like no getting this on the tree, like these 3 nodes would put you over 50%. And the reason we're doing that is because Fleshcrafter converts 2% of the maximum life to energy shield. So if you go above 50%, it's going to convert all their life to energy shield and they're going to die instantly. That's why that's happening. For all you guys out there that have been asking that question, that's the reason. Okay, back to configuration. Cool, so that is the base of this, no shenanigans. Now, if you, again, want to see what the actual DPS is with the Animate Guardian, so let's do this. First off, let's go back up to Ball Summon Skeletons. Let's do Enable Ball Summon Skeletons. Like I said, honestly, it's up like 80 to 90% of the time. It's always up. So that brings us up to 42 million DPS. We're gonna go back to configuration. This is your Animate Guardian setup right here, and I'll talk about the gear that he uses. It's this right here. So nearby enemies take 9% increased elemental damage. That comes from the helmet that he's going to wear, which is the elevated 6% increased elemental damage. You want to hit that with a Maven Orb, and that brings it up to the 9%. So that's a 9% more multiplier. Nearby enemies take 10% more damage. That comes from your Kingmaker, which is actually Culling Strike, which is equivalent of 10% more damage. Minions have 50% critical strike multiplier. That is also from Kingmaker. Minions have minions unnerve enemies for 4 seconds on hit. That comes from the gloves that you're going to put, which is also an elevated. The regular one is not great. The regular one is like, what, 10% on hit, and your Animate Guardian's not going to be hitting that often. So it's really not that good unless you have the elevated one, which is Minions Unnerve for 4 seconds on hit. And at that case, we're going to hit Unnerved over here. I did not have that checked, but now I do. So that brings us up to 59 million DPS. Fantastic. We're going to save that. But yeah, it's good to know. This is from your Animate Guardian. If you guys are ever curious, I think they added this in POB here recently, within the last league or two. The fact that you could put custom modifiers right here, so that's pretty cool. Remember, if you guys remember, we used to have to put them on like items. Which was kind of annoying. I got so many questions. They're like, why does your Fleshcrafter have blah, 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 blah. And like, it's my Animate Guardian, dude, relax. But now we can just put it right here and it's all good. Cool. I think that probably covers it. Let's go back here and let's make sure everything is checked. I'm gonna save this build for you guys. Very good. A lot of changes. Like I said, I spent about another 100x on the build. Now, probably a little bit more than that, probably about 150x. And this is the place that I'm at right now. I think the build is in a absolutely fantastic spot. Defensive wise, it's just so strong, being block and spell block capped, and on top of that, having the life recouped when you block is super strong. The skeleton freaking giant army is also super strong. Just the fact that you have, you know, your 14 normal skeletons, and then you've got like 50 Vol summon skeletons out there, it just makes for a super smooth play style, because you can literally hide behind pillars on wave 30 simulacrums and let your dudes just kill Kosis and Omniphobia with you literally hiding behind a pillar like halfway across the map, and they'll kill it in like, you know, a few seconds while you're completely safe. So it's a pretty cool play style. It's a pretty safe play style, and obviously just mapping, like, you're never gonna die in maps. Like, there's no way you're ever gonna die in maps. We do so much damage that literally everything in maps melts. It's only when you get to that like 100% delirium tier 16, tier 17 plus, where it's going to take you a little bit longer to clear the maps. But even then, like I said, like you saw in the gameplay showcase, we can absolutely do it, and we're rivaling, you know, some of those other crazy builds with Headhunter, which is pretty cool, which is not something I even expected to be able to do, but am able to do it, which is pretty cool. I guess I could mention this. It's like I said, you spam divines on these, which can be super annoying, or you could actually go on Discord, on the TFT Discord, and in the top right when you search, like, you can put the search bar in the TFT Discord, and you could type something like elegant hubris, or like 160% minion damage, or like 240% minion damage. And when you search that, it'll come up with people that are selling these jewels. There's actually people out there that literally sit there and just spam divines and, you know, put them in different slots on the map and see what's good. That's crazy to me. I would never do that. I did this myself, and I was done with it. It took me like a few hours to actually hit this. I think I spent about right under 20 exalts to get this one with 3 passives with Slumlord, and then obviously those other 2. Mine's crazy. I think mine's probably one of the best ones in the league with the spell block and the attack blocks. It's insane. You guys are probably not going to hit that. I can't believe I hit it. But you're probably looking at spending somewhere between 10 to 20 exalts if you want to roll these one of these yourself to hit those 3 of the passives. I bet you can spend only a couple exalts and you can probably hit 2 of them. So that's actually not too bad. I think I have like 5 that I can sell. If anybody wants them, I've got like 5 of them that you can purchase. They're definitely really annoying. You cannot buy them on like the trade website. There's no way to search for Slumlord that I know of. If you guys know of a way, you guys let me know in the comments. From what I know, you cannot. You can only purchase these off of TFT, or if, like I said, like I have some that people can buy if you guys want some 160%ers. But that's the only way to buy them, which kind of sucks. Or do it yourself with divine orbs. But yeah, I think that's all I got, guys. This is going to be the last update for this guide. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I actually want to give you guys a teaser for next league. So I'm going to be coming out with a full guide for, how am I going to say this, like all budget versions. So like I said, the league starter, the medium, and the high budget version. I'm going to do a massive mega build guide back like I used to do it when I first started on YouTube. Like, I'm going to take way extra time and, you know, make it super nice and pretty and very easy to understand for like newer players. I think that's why a lot of you guys stuck around with my channel in the beginning, was just because of the quality of the guides. I know like Esero does that all the time. You guys mentioned that, you know, hey, we really don't have that many people in the community that do build guides like this, and I appreciate that a lot. I just don't have as much time with that anymore. That was back when COVID was happening, and I had a lot more time back then. But I do want to do that again, at least for this one build, because I have had a ton of experience with skeleton mages. And I know that it's never going to get nerfed enough, just because the skill itself is just so good, and the clear speed is just so good because of the skill itself, that it's always going to be a fantastic build. It's always going to be a great league starter. So I do think I'm going to spend some effort for next league and come out probably a week or so before the league starts. And it's going to be like a super in-depth, not time-wise, but just, you know, it's going to be a high-quality guide. And I hope you guys are pumped for that and enjoy that one. So very good. Longer video than I wanted it to be, but if you guys stuck through this whole thing, again, you guys are champions. I appreciate you guys very much, and I will catch you guys in the next guide. See you guys.